everyone. Hi everyone, welcome to this afternoon or today's session of Advanced Animated Infographics with Flash Professional. In this session we'll be following on from this morning's session where we started to create an infographic using Flash Professional. Our presenter today is the wonderful, the delightful, the exuberant Joseph Labrecque, who is from the University of Denver and is an interactive software engineer. You can see that Joseph's got a whole heap of resources on the Adobe Education Exchange, so you should pop on there sometime. The resources for today's session, he's created an activity on there, and you can get to this via this link just here that I'm popping into the chat pod. If you're watching this and unable to click on the link, just pop into Adobe Education Exchange. Oh no, actually on the YouTube channel, we'll pop it underneath the video for you to click and open. So without further ado, I think it's time to head over to Joseph. Joseph, did you just want to share your screen before I mute myself? And we should be good to go. Excellent. Are you there?
Okay, can everybody see my my screen here? And it looks like you can hear me as well since you're responding, so that's great. So this is pretty much what we came up with this morning. In the morning session, we did a basic animated infographic using Flash Professional to create a something that's based inside of Flash Player. And whenever we want to actually publish this, we can just go to Control. We can test movie in Flash Pro or the browser. That'll render the Swift for us. Or, of course, we can go File, Publish. And what we get is basically this. So you've got each step of preparing a glass of absinthe that's fully animated to show you exactly how to do it, since so many people do it wrong. And about this, I also, in the interim, put it up on my Behance profile. So it's a static version, and if we have enough time, I'll show how to generate a static version of this, selecting specific frames in each of the movie clips we created. There's also a link off of here to a blog post I did about it, which explains a bit more about why this is so important to prepare absinthe correctly. And I've even got some videos at the bottom that show, in one case, how to prepare it correctly in a video form, and then how to use it incorrectly. So you want to stay away from that. So back over to Flash Pro, what we're going to do in this session is, whereas in the first session we created lots of animation to go with our infographic and publish it and so forth, in this one we want to actually convert everything over to HTML5 Canvas, because we want to be able to hit iPads and iPhones and stuff like that, and you just can't do that with a Swift file. So if we publish this for Canvas, we will be able to do that because it's HTML5 based and JavaScript based. So we're going to do that, and we're also going to make it interactive. So by a click or a tap, you'll be able to go from step to step. And it's actually, again, very, very easy to do. And I'll show you how here. So the first thing that we're going to actually do is to convert this to HTML5 Canvas. So to do that, we'll create a new Canvas document. We'll go File, New. And here we can choose from all these different types. You can see my HTML5 base types up here, my Flash and Air types down here, my ActionScript and JavaScript classes. This is all code stuff here. And then at the bottom we can have custom types, since Flash Professional now supports third-party custom targets. So we're going to choose HTML5 Canvas here. And what we're going to do is actually match the settings we have in our ActionScript 3 canvas. And it's really easy to do that. For a background color, we'll just click on there and then click the stage color, and that'll transfer that for us. For our width, we'll duplicate what we see over here in the properties panel for our ActionScript 3 document. And the same thing with height. So 400 by 2600, and we'll hit OK. So here it provides us with a basic stage and a big empty layer in our timeline. So we need to get all the assets over from our ActionScript 3 FLA to our Canvas FLA. So we'll just pop back over there. Flash Pro provides these tabs at the top. And what I'll do is select my bottle layer, this top layer here, and then shift-click my text layer. And that's going to select all the layers for me. And here I can right-click and copy these layers. Once the layers are copied, I can pop over to my Canvas document, right-click on there, and choose Paste. So you'll notice a number of things happen here, and they're not all good. For one thing, our out window tells us a bunch of warnings. So those neat things we did with multiply in terms of the dosage last time, we're not able to do that in HTML5 Canvas, sadly. Also a lot of problems with our text, and some anti-alias stuff and kerning stuff isn't going to port over. You'll also notice that our text looks absolutely awful, right? Because when you move text over, text in Canvas actually becomes, and if I select on one of these we can see, it becomes dynamic text, and you cannot choose static text, which is the type of text we chose last time. So dynamic text needs to be able to, it's sort of rendered on the fly, where static text is converted into outlines and glyphs, basic shapes upon export. So we can actually fix this. And what we'll do is just Control Z out of there. So it's as if we haven't even pasted that stuff in there yet. Hopping back over to our ActionScript base file, we can choose our text layer. And the text layer has all the text on it through the entire infographic. And what we'll do is we can click on Control B for break apart if you're on a Windows machine. If you're on a Mac or just want to do it through the controls here, you can do break apart. You'll notice it's Control B here, but it's modify break apart with these things selected. So if I hit Control B, and this will take a moment, you'll notice that everything's broken down into individual characters. But those are all still little tiny text fields. So we still don't want that. So we'll hit Control B again with all those selected. And these will automatically be converted into basic outlines for us. So this is going to be vector graphic information, which is something that, of course, Canvas is able to render through Flash Professional. And you'll notice it takes a while there. All right, so now I can do this again. I can select my layer and shift select my bottom layer, right click, copy my layers to paste, right click paste over into my Canvas document. So now we get, you'll notice some different warnings here. So it's only warnings about multiply now because it doesn't care about the text anymore, and the text actually comes across nicely now because it's all just simple outlines. So now that we have this as a Canvas document, what can we do with it? Well, I'm going to actually close everything I have here because I've got steps. So this is like easy bake oven, right? And I'm going to pull this FLA here, and these FLAs are all within the actual resources on the Education Exchange. So you can see my text is still this glyph here. So what we're going to do is test this in the browser and see how it looks. So to do that, just like with Flash Player, we're going to go Control Test. If we choose Test Movie, you'll notice you can't test a Canvas document within Flash Professional, but you can test it in the browser. So we will do that and see what happens. All right, so here it comes. And you'll notice it looks pretty good, except it is crawling. And the reason it's crawling is because whereas Flash Player can handle all that vector information really, really well in a really efficient way, Canvas isn't exactly on top of things. So what can we do to fix this? Well, thankfully there is some stuff that we can do to remedy this. So popping back over into Flash Professional, if we go to the timeline, and remember we broke apart our text, so that created a whole bunch of vector information for Canvas to be able to work with, and that is actually what's causing Canvas to have such problems. So if we select all our text, so all of our text is selected once again because we chose that frame, and what we will do is right-click upon the text, and there's an option here to convert to bitmap. So if I choose that, you'll notice what happens is now we have a bitmap representation of all of the text. So it's not editable anymore, and actually it hasn't been editable since we broke it apart. But this might be one reason you might want to kind of start things off in an ActionScript FLA, and then, modify that into something for Canvas and other targets as you see fit. So if we go Control Test, at this point, it's going to export this again. And now we can see it's much, much faster. You'll notice the blend modes aren't there for our dosage and so forth, but it actually runs pretty nicely now. So that's really good. So going back into our Canvas FLA, what we're going to want to do next is actually give the user control over this. I mean, infographics are fun and everything, but since we're doing this in Canvas or Flash Player, it doesn't need to be this big, long, kind of trawling infographic here. We can actually do things a little more in a way that's more manageable. So to do that, what we'll do is we're going to go in here and actually resize our stage. We're going to resize the stage to 400 by 540. So it's going to be much, much shorter than it has been. So you can see the stage now really only takes up one step at a time, including some extra information, such as the title or the facts down at the bottom. Now that we've done that, what we're going to do is, again, select that bottle layer, Shift-click the text layer, and here, instead of copying the layers, we're going to actually cut all of these layers, because we're going to place all of these layers inside an additional parent movie clip. And the reason we're going to do that is so that we can move everything inside of that one movie clip all together. It's almost like grouping everything into a div in HTML. You're able to manipulate that div X and Y position, and everything inside of it adjusts accordingly. It's the same sort of concept here. So what we'll do is inside of this blank frame, we're going to choose to insert a new symbol. And we can just call this infographic, or whatever you'd want to call it. It really doesn't matter as long as you remember what you called it and it makes sense. So here you'll notice we're now inside of this infographic symbol. If you remember from this morning, scene 1 is going to represent our root timeline. And then if we're inside a movie clip symbol, that'll be represented here. So you'll notice there's nothing here yet, but just like we did when we converted this to Canvas, we can now just paste those layers that we cut, and they'll pop right in there. So that's all of our information, and all of our little sub movie clips are in here, which contain all of our animated elements. Everything came over just right. So clicking on scene 1 is going to bring us back out onto the root timeline, but you'll notice there's actually nothing there. That's because when we insert the symbol, for whatever reason, it gets inserted into the library and not on our stage. But you'll notice it's actually selected here, and we can see the full infographic. And I can pull this guy over, and you'll notice everything moves really nicely together. If I switch over to my Properties panel, and then go to my X and my Y position, I can easily...
Joseph?
Yes?
Sorry. We just need you to share your screen.
Uh-oh. When did that happen? What was the...
Just...
Before placing movie footage? All right, that's not that far off and do that. So you heard me say that, yeah, there's no movie clip on this stage, right? So I've got this empty layer here, and if I go to my library, we can see that we have that infographic movie clip that I did create by choosing insert new symbol and then pasting those layers in there. So I can grab that from my library and just paste it anywhere I want. You'll notice everything's moving all together, which is exactly what we want for this exercise. If I move over to properties, and I have this entire movie clip symbol instance selected, on my X and Y properties here, I can simply punch in 0, 0 for X and Y, and automatically it's all aligned just as it was before. So we are all set now. I'm going to go into my layer 1 here and change this to infographic, just so it makes sense. And something else I'll be able to do is create a fresh layer for my code. And following Flash Professional convention, we'll just name this Actions and then lock it. So we don't have to deal with potentially doing something to it that we don't want to. It's always good to lock stuff down when you're messing around. So now that I've got my Actions layer, in here we're actually able to place timeline JavaScript. So normally if you're working with targeting Flash Player or Air inside of Flash Professional, you'd be writing ActionScript. But if you're targeting Canvas or WebGL, you can actually use Flash Professional to write out all your JavaScript to do that. But before we do, we're going to need to motion tween this big, giant, long infographic according to the different steps that we've laid out here. So we have 5 steps. So what we'll do, I happen to know that we need about 120 frames or so. So I'll select both of these frames across both of these layers and choose Insert Timeline Frame. That's going to extend my frame span for both of those layers out to 120 frames. So the next thing I'll do is actually create a motion tween on my infographic. So to do that, I simply right-click on my infographic layer and choose Create Motion Tween. This creates this blue hue to this entire frame span, which is going to allow me to tween this as a motion tween. So the next thing we'll do is go out every 20 steps. So I move my playhead through dragging this red playhead here to frame 20. And at frame 20, what I can do is actually this guy up. So I'll move it up so it looks like number 2 here. Step 2 is sort of centered. And what might help here is to back out a little bit. So I'll kind of take this zoom level out until I can see the entire stage here. So that's pretty good. I can get a good idea then when it's actually centered here, as you can see. So moving out to frame 40, you'll notice I'm doing this every 20 frames. And this just makes it really easy. Keeps everything kind of coordinated. I have to shift it here to 100. And of course, it doesn't have to be exact. And then there's my last bit, my absinthe facts. And if we scrub along the timeline, we can see how that works. Right now, if we published it, it would just tween from bottom to top. There's absolutely no control right now. So what we need to do is actually stop this right at the beginning and then on each subsequent step. So to do that, we'll use the actions layer that we just created, and I can actually lock down my infographics layer so I don't modify it by mistake. So here in my actions layer, I'm going to go to Window and choose my Actions panel. You can see you can hit F9 to open that as well. And that opens up this Actions panel for us. So to actually stop the timeline right here, all I need to do is say this, and this refers to whatever current object we're in this time. In this particular instance, this is the root timeline. So we're saying, hey, timeline, I want you to stop. And this is exactly the same command that you would use in ActionScript. So whether you're using ActionScript or JavaScript, whether you're targeting Flash Player or HTML5 Canvas, it's the same thing, this.stop. Going out to frame 20, I'm going to choose, select that frame, of course, choose Insert Timeline Blank Keyframe, and then I can paste in this.stop. I'm going to do that for each of these. And you can choose keyframe too, since there's actually, nothing visible on the stage here. Or you can always use the shortcut key, which is F7 on Windows. And on this last one here, we could say stop, but instead of saying stop, I'm going to actually tell it to go back to the beginning. So for that, I say this.goTo and stop. And here you'll notice position or label. It gives us these nice little hints. So position or label, what do I want to do? I want to go to and stop at 0. So this is a little bit different. Inside of JavaScript, it always starts with 0 in terms of the frame numbering. In ActionScript, it always starts with 1. So that's a bit of a difference, but that's okay. So now we have stop actions or go to and stop actions on each of these frames here. This is what's known as a frame script. So if you're using ActionScript or JavaScript, it's still a frame script. So what we need to do to make this interactive is to open up our code snippets panel, and we want to have this activate, go to the next step every time we click on the actual image here, our movie clip symbol instance. So what we'll do is unlock our infographic, and then select the whole thing on the stage, go to Window, and open up Code Snippets. So here's our Code Snippets panel, and you'll notice it's actually categorized for Code Snippets for ActionScript and Code Snippets for HTML5 Canvas. So inside here, we'll see timeline navigation, which has a lot of the stuff that we just saw. But we also have event handlers. And inside of event handlers, there's a mouse click event. So let's go ahead and choose Add to Current Frame. So it tells us, hey, you need an instance name on here. Flash is going to create one for you. I'm going to hit OK. I really should have named this thing first. And when we click on that, we can see the instance name here. It's called movieclip_1 because Flash named it for us. Let's just say IG for infographic. We'll keep it nice and short. So having that selected, you go into properties and you give it an instance name there. So you'll notice that my actions panel went blank. That's because I've got the object selected now. I have to go back to this frame here, and you'll notice here's all the stuff that Flash Pro put in there through the snippets panel. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of all of these different comments because I don't want any of those. And then anytime it says movie clip 1, I'm going to replace that with IG since that's the instance name of our movie clip. I'm also going to change the name of the function that gets invoked whenever you click on something. So I'm just going to call this IG click. So I'll change it there. This is the function that gets called. And then here's where you actually bind this function, IG click, to this event listener of click on our infographic instance. So if you don't know how to do this stuff, in terms of binding events to JavaScript, the Code Snippets panel has wonderful examples for you to use. And I'd definitely say have a look at that. So what do we want to have happen when somebody clicks? It's actually super easy. Every time somebody clicks on that, we just want to invoke this.play. And that's going to say, hey, main timeline, I know you're stopped right now. I just want you to play from here. And then it's going to go automatically. It's going to start playing, and it's going to stop on the next stop. And that'll keep on going. So let's go ahead and choose Control. Let's save this guy first. And we'll go Control Test. So something happen here. You'll notice everything's animating, everything's in this nice small window. And as I click on it, oh, hey, that moves pretty nicely. I can click on it again, and then all of a sudden it stops. So why does it stop? If we go to Inspect Element and go to the console, we'll see, oh no, let's see, security restrictions on reading Canvas pixel data with local or cross-domain images. So that's no good. Let's copy that URL and open up Firefox. Because Firefox actually has much less strict security measures on things like that than Chrome does. I prefer to work in Chrome when I'm dealing with this stuff, but it just has so many security restrictions. If you actually had these items on a server somewhere, it wouldn't be an issue. But since we have to deal with this when working locally, it's good to test any sort of interactivity in terms of JavaScript and Canvas with Firefox. So that's pretty cool. I am just about out of time. So there is one extra thing I wanted to show, which was masking out the rest of that stuff. But I actually have a video on YouTube that shows that. And it's inside of the resources on my Education Exchange links. But one thing I would like to show you is how to go about creating the actual static infographic that I've showed in my Behance profile and stuff. So to do that, and I'm just going to do this to one here, you'll notice these are all movie clip symbols right now. If you want to make a static version of this, just go to movie clip right here with the actual movie clip instance selected, and just tell Flash Professional to treat that as a graphic symbol. The reason we do that is because inside of a graphic symbol, you have these looping options where you can choose loop, play once, or single frame. Since we're doing static stuff, we can choose single frame, and then we can choose, hey, you know, which particular frame looks the best here. So, I don't know, something like that maybe. And then if you want to actually save this out as a static image, you just say File, Export, Export Image. And here, hey, wake up. There we go. So here you can choose JPEG, PNG, whatever you want. We can choose a JPEG here and hit Save. And now when you actually export this JPEG, you can choose minimum image area, which is just going to take into account your images that are on the stage, or you can choose the full document size, which is going to export the entire infographic for you. And when you do that, it's actually going to have this nice, solid, static infographic that you can use and, you know, maybe point to something else. If you go to my Behance page and you click on this link here to my blog about this, there's all sorts of links in here that go to, you know, the Flash player-based version or the interactive version that I have hosted up on my on some web space here. So pretty nice. And you know, that's it. It's not hard to do this stuff. And I hope you've all you know, gotten a little something out of this, even those who are you know, very, very good at Flash Professional and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. There are a couple of questions here, so I'll ask and then I'll mute myself. You can see both of them there. If everyone, while we're listening to these, could pop their feedback, that would be wonderful. So our first question is it good practice to use this stop or just as opposed to that stop, or is it because it's JavaScript?
I believe, well, I mean, this is sort of implicit sometimes, right? It's more explicit if you say this dot stop because you know exactly what there is. I'm not sure if JavaScript prefers one over the other. But in the code snippets, I believe that it's recommended this .stop if you actually choose that through the code snippets for JavaScript. So that's what I've used here. But yeah, in ActionScript, I believe both will work for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing that with us. It's been a wonderful session. As I mentioned, this recording will be sent out via email to those who registered. For those who didn't, you can see the link there for the Education Exchange. Our next session we have in 2 weeks' time, we'll be focusing on Acrobat Pro Extend, creating e-portfolios, and also using Acrobat Pro for student feedback, so peer feedback. And Rachel Wooden, who's another Adobe Education leader, will be leading that session. So please do leave your feedback so we're able to continue to cater to your needs and understand better what you would like to see. Don't forget that the Adobe Professional Development events page has all upcoming webinars and courses and anything you need for to take your learning to the next level. So, we've just had another question pop up, so we better answer that before we go, Joseph. So what's your advice on going with Edge Animate over Flash for HTML? And I think after that, we will end the session. So over to you, Joseph.
Yeah, so, most of the differences and probably how I would recommend somebody choose between using Edge Animate or Flash Professional if you're targeting HTML5 is that, if you're familiar with Flash Professional already, it might be a good choice because you're already familiar with the internal toolings. The workflow is exactly the same from what you would be doing for Flash Player. I would also make the point that Edge Animate is DOM-based animation, so it's actually moving DOM elements around the screen, whereas with HTML5 inside of Flash Professional, you're targeting Canvas through either the basic Canvas 2D stuff or through the WebGL engine that Adobe has built into their WebGL exporter. So it's really two very different ways of working with the stuff afterwards. So it depends on what your overall workflow is, I think, in terms of what you're going to use to, create your content.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks, Joseph. And great comment there, Paul. I'm glad this can be of use for you. So everyone, that's the end of today's session. Hopefully we'll see you all back in 2 weeks' time for our Acrobat Pro Extend. So have a lovely evening if you're on the other side of the universe, and have a great day if you're sitting where I'm sitting in Australia. So Joseph, thank you so much for your time and all your effort for that. I really do appreciate it very much. Oh,
Thanks, everyone.
Another question.
Motion tween or classic tween better for Canvas? I believe what happens if you have a motion tween is it automatically gets transferred to frame-by-frame animation. I'm not quite sure on that. I can't remember. It might be the classic tween gets converted instead of motion tween. One of them actually gets converted when you publish to actual frame-by-frame animation, which you can also do in Flash Professional. I can't quite remember which one it is at this point, though, so sorry.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Joseph. Okay, everyone. I will see you all at a later date. Thanks so much for coming.